Commander Deho sat in the war room of the massive flagship destroyer, its metal walls humming with energy from the ship's powerful engines. The holographic projector cast an eerie blue light across his weathered face as he watched the same message for the fifth time. His fingers drummed against the tactical table, each tap echoing in the silent chamber. The Vorthan elder's image flickered before him, ancient and wise, with skin like weathered stone and 3 golden eyes that had seen 1,000 worlds rise and fall. The creature's voice carried the weight of centuries as it spoke through the quantum transmission device. Commander Deho of the Galactic HFY, the Elder began, its voice deep and resonant. I'm Elder Velthar of the Vorthan Collective. We have watched your fleet movements toward the human homeworld. This is our final warning to you. The Vorthan's 3 eyes blinked slowly, one after another, like stars going out in sequence. The humans have made their world into a snare. Do not be deceived by their apparent weakness. Earth is not what it seems. What looks like prey may be the hunter. What appears defenseless may be the deadliest trap in the galaxy. Admiral Subin burst through the chamber doors, her boots clicking sharply against the metal floor. Her uniform was pristine, covered in battle ribbons from a dozen conquered worlds. She was the hegemony's most successful military commander, known throughout the galaxy for her ruthless efficiency. Still watching that old fool's ramblings, she asked, her voice dripping with contempt. The Vorthans have grown soft in their old age. Once they were warriors who could crack planets in half. Now they hide behind their philosophy and fear shadows. She waved her hand, and dozens of holographic reports materialized above the table. Intelligence data streamed past in glowing columns of text and images. Our deep space scouts have been watching Earth for months. Deho, the humans barely have a dozen functional warships. Their technology is centuries behind ours. Look at this. The display showed grainy images of human spacecraft, boxy and crude compared to the sleek hegemony vessels. Their hulls were patched with metal plates. Their engines leaked plasma, and their weapons looked like toys. General Titan entered the room, his massive frame filling the doorway. His species was known for their size and strength, standing nearly 8 feet tall with arms like tree trunks. The humans sent us diplomatic messages just last cycle. He rumbled, his voice like grinding stone. They were practically begging for peaceful contact. Their ambassador was shaking so hard I thought he might fall apart. Titan activated another hologram showing the human diplomatic team. The humans looked small and fragile, their leader wiping sweat from his forehead as he spoke. Please, honored members of the Galactic Hegemony, the human ambassador had said, Earth seeks only peace and friendship. We have much to offer in terms of trade and cultural exchange. Subin laughed harshly. Terrified insects. They know they cannot stand against us. She gestured to more intelligence data. Their colonies are scattered across a few worthless moons. Their orbital defenses consist of plasma cannons that belong in a museum and shield generators that a child could break through. Deho studied the information carefully, his tactical mind analyzing every detail. The human fleet was indeed pathetic by hegemony standards. Their largest warship was smaller than a hegemony scout vessel. Their weapons could barely scratch. Modern armor plating. Their defensive positions round Earth looked like something built by primitive creatures still learning to use fire. Yet something nagged at him. The Vorthans were not known for lying or exaggeration. They were one of the oldest species in the galaxy, witnesses to the rise and fall of countless civilizations. Their warnings had saved lives before. The resource scans are incredible. Taijin continued, pulling up geological data from Earth. Rare minerals we haven't seen in decades. Clean water covering most of the planet's surface. Perfect atmospheric conditions for most of our species. and billions of humans who would make excellent workers in our mining operations. Su Bin's eyes gleamed with greed and ambition. One quick strike, and we claim it all. The humans will surrender the moment they see our fleet. We won't even need to fire a shot. The holographic display flickered again as another transmission from the Vorthan Elder appeared. The ancient being looked even more concerned than before, its golden eyes filled with urgency. "Commander Deho, I sense you are still listening. Please, I beg you to reconsider your course. The humans are not what they appear to be. They have spent years preparing for this moment. The trap is already set, waiting for the unwary to spring it. Do not let pride blind you to the danger." Elder Velthar leaned closer to the camera, his voice dropping to a whisper. "In all my centuries of life, I have never seen a species more patient or more cunning when cornered. They are waiting for you, Commander. They want you to come." Su Bin's face flushed with anger. She slammed her fist on the table, causing the holographic displays to flicker. "Enough of this superstitious nonsense," she shouted. "The Vorthans cower in their crystal cities while we conquer the galaxy. They fear taking action because they have forgotten what strength means." She turned to Deho, her eyes blazing with determination. "We deploy the Third Fleet immediately. 200 of our finest warships should be more than enough to secure their unconditional surrender. The humans will make excellent slaves, and their world will become the crown jewel of our empire." The room filled with tension as the two military philosophies clashed. Su Bin represented the new hegemony, where overwhelming force applied quickly and brutally. Deho carried the wisdom of experience, having survived battles that claimed entire fleets. The transmission from Elder Velthar continued, his voice growing more desperate. "Please, honored Commander, the humans have allied themselves with forces beyond your understanding. What you see as weakness is camouflage. What appears as fear is patience. Do not spring their trap." Su Bin had heard enough. With an angry gesture, she terminated the connection. Cutting off the Vorthan Elder mid-sentence, the hologram dissolved into sparkling particles of light. "Enough of their superstitions and fairy tales," she declared firmly. "We are the Galactic Hegemony. We have conquered 1,000 worlds and enslaved 100 species. These primitive humans pose no threat to our might." She activated the fleet communication system, her voice broadcasting to every ship in the Armada. "All vessels, prepare for immediate departure. Target: Earth. Mission: total conquest." We attack at dawn. As the massive war fleet began powering up their engines, Deho stared at the empty space where the Vorthan's warning had been. Deep in his gut, something told him they were making a terrible mistake. But orders were orders, and the hegemony's hunger for a new world would not be denied. Captain Jinwoo stood on the bridge of the massive hegemony flagship Thunderstrike, his hands clasped behind his back as he gazed through the enormous viewport. The bridge was a cathedral of war technology, with holographic displays floating in the air and crew members working at stations that hummed with deadly power. 200 warships surrounded them in perfect military formation, their black holes reflecting the distant starlight like predatory sharks moving through dark water. Earth hung before them like a precious blue jewel against the velvet of space, its white clouds swirling over vast oceans and green continents. It looked so peaceful, so innocent. Jinwoo had conquered 17 worlds in his military career, but none had looked quite so beautiful as this one. "Distance to target," he asked his navigation officer. 2,000,000 kilometers and closing." "Captain," came the crisp reply, "all ships report ready for combat operations." The hegemony fleet was an impressive sight to behold. Massive dreadnoughts bristled with plasma cannons that could melt mountains. Sleek destroyers carried missile pods loaded with enough firepower to crack a moon in half. Fighter carriers launched swarms of attack craft that moved like angry wasps from the larger Vessels. This was the Third Fleet, the hegemony's most elite fighting force, fresh from victories against the Zorblaxian Empire and the Crystal Confederacy. Lieutenant Hygiene looked up from her sensor station, her face illuminated by the blue glow of her displays. She was young for her rank, but her skills at reading sensor data were legendary throughout the fleet, sir, and detecting human vessels fleeing toward the outer planets. Multiple contacts moving away from Earth at maximum speed. Jinwoo walked over to her station, studying the tactical display that showed dozens of red dots streaming away from Earth like blood drops from a wound. What kind of ships? Civilian transports mostly, Hyjin replied, her fingers dancing across the controls to enhance the sensor readings. Some mining vessels, a few cargo haulers. They're all broadcasting emergency signals and evacuation codes. Looks like they're running from us and the asteroid belt colonies. Admiral Subin emerged from her private command chamber, her uniform immaculate despite the long journey through hyperspace. Her reputation preceded her throughout the galaxy. The Iron Admiral. They called her the woman who had never lost a battle. Her cold eyes surveyed the bridge like a predator examining prey. Cowards, she muttered, watching the fleeing human ships on the main display. They abandoned their home world at the first sign of real opposition. This will be easier than I thought. She strode to the center of the bridge, her boots clicking against the metal floor with military precision. Communications officer, open a channel to all human frequencies. Let's see if we can end this without wasting ammunition. The main screen flickered to life, showing Subin's stern face broadcast across every human communication device within range. Her image would be appearing on screens throughout Earth, from government bunkers to family homes, carrying a message that would strike fear into billions of hearts. Humans of Earth, she began, her voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. You are defeated before we have even begun to fight. Your pathetic fleet cannot stand against the might of the galactic hegemony. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick and painless. Resist us, and we will make your species suffer for generations. Your children will curse your names for the agony you brought upon them. The transmission cut to silence, leaving only the hum of the ship's engines and the quiet beeping of sensor equipment. Jinwoo watched Earth through the viewport, wondering how many humans were staring up at the stars right now. Knowing that death was coming for their world, a response came. Within minutes, the main screen activated again, showing a middle-aged human man sitting at what appeared to be a government desk. He wore a simple blue suit, and his eyes looked tired and desperate. Behind him, Jinwoo could see other humans moving frantically, carrying documents and equipment. Honored Admiral of the Galactic Hegemony, the human began, his voice shaking slightly. I am Director Park of the Earth Defense Council. Please, we don't want war. We understand that resistance would be futile against your superior forces. We're preparing evacuation ships right now to move our people away from populated areas. The human's hands trembled as he spoke. We have civilian populations, billions of innocent people who have done nothing wrong. Give us time to gather our people and prepare for whatever terms you require. We just need time. Subin smiled coldly, the expression never reaching her eyes. You have 6 standard hours, she replied without emotion. After that, we begin orbital bombardment of your major cities. Every minute you delay will cost 1 million lives. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in tense silence. Through the sensor displays, they watched the human response unfold in real time. Ships began launching from Earth's surface and orbital stations in what looked like complete panic. The vessels scattered in every direction, some heading for Mars, others racing toward the asteroid mining colonies, and a few brave souls attempting to reach the outer system planets. Look at them run, commented Tactical Officer Minho from his weapons station. Like roaches when you turn on the lights. no formation, no coordination. No plan except to get as far away as possible. Jinwoo studied the tactical display showing the human ship movements. The patterns did look random and desperate. Mining vessels loaded with families fleeing toward the asteroid belt. Civilian transports packed with refugees heading for Mars colonies. Research ships abandoning their stations and running for the outer planets. Pathetic, he commented, shaking his head. No formation, no coordination. It's like watching insects flee from fire. These humans have no concept of military strategy or organized retreat. Lieutenant Hygiene continued monitoring the sensor readings. Captain, I'm detecting massive communication traffic between the fleeing ships. Looks like they're coordinating refugee movements and trying to establish safe zones in the outer colonies. Scared animals looking for holes to hide in. Subin observed with contempt. Their government abandons them. Their military runs away. And their civilians scatter like dust in the wind. This species will make excellent slaves once we break their spirit completely. The hegemony fleet continued its steady advance toward Earth, maintaining perfect formation. Each ship held its position with mathematical precision, their weapons, systems charged and ready for battle. The dark hulls of the warships seemed to absorb the light from nearby stars, making them look like holes in space itself. Commander Byung-ho stood at the tactical planning station, studying detailed scans of Earth's defenses. Their orbital platforms are powering up, but the energy signatures are weak, primitive plasma weapons and basic particle shields. Our lead destroyers could punch through their entire defensive network in under an hour. Earth's ground installations show similar weaknesses, added intelligence officer Seojin. Missile silos with chemical propellants, aircraft that can't even reach orbit, and ground forces equipped with projectile weapons. It's like they're still living in their planet's Stone Age, as Earth grew larger in the viewport. Jinwoo felt the familiar excitement that came before an easy victory. The planet's blue oceans and green continents would soon belong to the hegemony. Its resources would fuel their expansion into new sectors of the galaxy. And its people would serve as workers in the mines and factories that powered their empire. The human ships continued fleeing in apparent terror, their emergency broadcasts filling the communication channels with desperate pleas for help that would never come. Victory seemed not just inevitable, but embarrassingly easy. None of them noticed the subtle precision hidden within the chaos, or realized that the fleeing ships were moving into very specific positions throughout the solar system. The trap was almost ready to spring. Lieutenant Minho had been staring at the same tactical display for 3 hours straight, his eyes burning from the constant blue glow of the holographic projections. The hegemony fleet was now only 500,000 kilometers from Earth, close enough that he could see the planets, weather patterns swirling across its surface. Everything seemed to be going according to plan. Then something changed. The red dots on his screen, representing the fleeing human vessels, suddenly stopped moving away from Earth. Minho blinked hard, thinking fatigue was playing tricks on his eyes. But no, the readings were correct. Every single human ship had stopped their panicked flight and was now holding position in space. Admiral, Minho called out, his voice cutting through the quiet hum of the bridge. The fleeing human ships, they've stopped running. Admiral Subin looked up from her command chair, where she had been reviewing the final assault plans. Her perfectly styled hair caught the light from the tactical displays as she turned toward the Sens. Or station. What do you mean, stopped? Minho's fingers flew across his controls, zooming in on different sections of the solar system. They're not fleeing anymore. They're repositioning around us. His voice carried a note of confusion that made several other bridge officers look up from their stations. It's like they're forming some kind of pattern. Captain Jinwoo strode over to the tactical station, his boots echoing against the metal. "Deck plating. Show me the full system display." The main holographic projector activated, filling the center of the bridge with a three-dimensional map of the entire solar system. Red dots representing human vessels were scattered throughout the area, from the inner planets all the way out to the asteroid belt. But as they watched, those dots began moving with sudden, deliberate precision. What had looked like random panic just moments before now revealed itself as something else entirely. The human ships were moving into specific coordinates with mathematical accuracy. Ships that had been fleeing toward Mars suddenly changed course and took up positions along precise geometric lines. Vessels that had been racing for the asteroid belt now formed perfect triangular formations in space. "By the void," whispered Navigation Officer Sunmin. "They're not running at all. They're surrounding us." Captain Ji-yoon rushed to her tactical station, her hands shaking as she tried to process what she was seeing. Impossible. She breathed, her voice barely audible over the bridge's ambient noise. "There are ships everywhere. How did we not detect them?" The answer came like a thunderbolt from the depths of space itself. Dozens of what their sensors had identified as simple asteroid mining vessels suddenly began to change. They're dull, industrial-looking. Hulls started to shift and transform, revealing that the outer casings had been nothing more than camouflage shells. Lieutenant Haijin gasped from her sensor station as her equipment went wild with new readings. "Admiral, those mining ships, they're not mining ships at all." Before their eyes, the disguised vessels shed their fake outer hulls like snakes shedding their skin. Underneath the industrial camouflage were sleek, predatory warships, unlike anything in the hegemony's extensive military databases. Their hulls were smooth and organic-looking, as if they had been grown rather than built. Strange patterns of light pulsed along their surfaces like the heartbeat of some massive space creature. The civilian transports were transforming too. What had appeared to be bulky refugee ships carrying fleeing families now revealed themselves as sophisticated combat vessels. Weapon ports opened along their sides like the eyes of awakening dragons. Energy began to build in chambers that definitely weren't designed for carrying passengers. "Sir," Haijin's voice cracked with alarm as her sensor readings spiked into the red zone. "Earth's orbital platforms, they're not what our scan showed. They're activating some kind of massive energy system." Captain Jinwoo spun round to look at Earth through the main viewport. The planet's orbital defense stations, which had looked like ancient relics just minutes before, were now pulsing with blinding white light. The energy signatures coming from them were off the charts, far beyond anything their intelligence reports had suggested was possible. A web of brilliant blue energy suddenly erupted from hidden installations scattered across Earth's surface and in orbit round the planet. The energy beams reached out like the fingers of some cosmic giant, connecting with similar installations on the Moon, on Mars, and on dozens of hidden platforms throughout the solar system. The net expanded at incredible speed, growing larger and more complex with each passing second. It wrapped round the entire hegemony fleet like a three-dimensional cage made of pure crackling power. The energy field was so bright that it hurt to look at directly, casting strange shadows across the bridge as it enclosed them from every direction. Admiral Su Bin stood slowly from her command chair, her face draining of all color as the reality of their situation hit her like a physical blow. Her hands trembled as she gripped the armrests of her chair. "It's a trap," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "By all the stars in the galaxy, it's a trap." The Vorthans were right. The transformation was complete now, from every direction. Human vessels closed in on the trapped hegemony fleet-like a pack of space wolves surrounding wounded prey. Their formation was absolutely flawless, their coordination impossible for any species the hegemony had ever encountered. Every ship moved in perfect harmony with the others, as if they were all controlled by a single mind. "How many ships?" Jinwoo demanded, his voice tight with growing panic. "I'm reading over 800 contacts," Minho reported, his voice shaking. "They were hidden everywhere. In the asteroid belt, behind the moons of Jupiter, even inside the rings of Saturn. Our sensors never detected them. The human fleet was a sight to behold and fear in equal measure. Their ships moved with fluid grace, like schools of fish in an ocean of stars. Some vessels were massive, easily dwarfing the hegemony's largest dreadnoughts. Others were small and fast, darting between the larger ships like deadly escort fighters. But most terrifying of all was there. Weapons, energy signatures that shouldn't have been possible pulsed along the hulls of the human ships. Devices that bent space itself hummed with barely contained power. Weapons that existed only in theoretical physics textbooks charged with energy that made the very fabric of reality ripple and bend. They've been planning this for years, Su Bin realized, her military mind finally grasping the scope of what they faced. Every ship that fled, every panicked transmission, every desperate plea from mercy, it was all an act. They wanted us to come here. The energy cage around them pulsed and strengthened, trapping the 200 ships of the Third Fleet like insects in amber. There would be no escape, no retreat, no calling for reinforcements. Earth hadn't been defenseless at all. It had been waiting for them to take the bait. The hunt was about to begin. And the hegemony had just discovered they were the prey. The first hegemony ship to die was the destroyer Crimson Fang, commanded by Captain Wu Jin, a veteran of 30 battles across the galaxy. He stood on his bridge watching the human vessels approach, his crew ready at their weapon stations. The ship's massive plasma cannons were charged and locked onto the nearest human target. "Fire at will," Wu Jin commanded, his voice steady. Despite the impossible situation they found themselves in, the Crimson Fang's main guns erupted with brilliant iron fire, sending streams of superheated plasma racing across space toward a sleek human vessel. The shots should have vaporized the enemy ship instantly. Instead, something incredible happened. The human ship didn't even try to dodge as the plasma bolts approached. The space round the vessel seemed to bend and twist like water. The deadly energy shots curved away from their target as if hitting an invisible wall, spiraling off harmlessly into empty space. What in the void was that? Gasped Weapons Officer Del Su from his firing controls. Before anyone could answer, Wu Jin felt something wrong with his ship. The hull began to groan and creak like an old building in a storm. Through the viewport, he watched in horror as his destroyer began to fold in on itself. The massive metal hull crumpled like paper being squeezed by an invisible giant's fist. "Hull breach on all decks," screamed the damage control officer. "We're losing structural integrity everywhere." Wu Jin grabbed his command chair as the bridge tilted at a crazy angle. Sparks flew from control panels as the ship's systems overloaded. Emergency lights flashed red as the Crimson Fang collapsed into a twisted ball of metal in less than 10 seconds. The explosion that followed lit up the darkness of space like a miniature star. From the bridge of another hegemony vessel, Tactical Officer Yunsu watched the destruction with wide eyes. "They're using gravity weapons," he shouted over the alarm klaxons. "They're crushing our ships with gravitational forces. Our shields are completely useless." All around them, the hunt had begun in earnest. The human ships moved through space like living creatures, their hulls shimmering with energy fields that seemed to bend reality itself. They didn't fly so much as dance, weaving between the hegemony vessels with grace that defied physics. The human weapons were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Some fired beams of pure white light that didn't just destroy their targets, but somehow unraveled them at the atomic level. Hegemony warships struck by these beams simply came apart, their metal hulls turning to dust that sparkled in the starlight. Other human vessels use weapons that seem to age their targets thousands of years in seconds. Captain Menciok watched. His cruiser's hull began to rust and decay as if it had been floating in space for centuries. The metal turned brown and brittle, then crumbled away like ancient pottery. Impossible, he whispered as his ship fell apart around him. Metal doesn't age that fast. It's not scientifically possible. But the humans had clearly moved beyond what the hegemony considered possible. Captain Yun-Ho commanded a squadron of 12 heavy cruisers, the pride of the Third Fleet. He had fought the crystal beings of Zirion Prime and the machine armies of the Synthetic Collective. He knew how to adapt to enemy tactics and turn the tide of battle. Form defensive positions. He bought into his communications ray. All ships concentrate fire on the nearest human vessel, overlapping fields of fire. We can overwhelm their defenses if we work together. His squadron began to move into a protective formation, their weapon systems targeting a single human ship that looked smaller than the others. If they could destroy just one enemy vessel, they might learn something about how to fight these. Impossible weapons, firing solution locked, reported his weapons officer. All ships report ready to fire. Fire everything. Young-Ho commanded. 12 heavy cruisers unleashed their full firepower at once. Plasma cannons, particle beams, fusion torpedoes, and quantum missiles all converged on the single human target. The combined firepower was enough to crack a small moon in half. The human ship sat motionless in space, making no attempt to dodge or defend itself. For a moment, Young-Ho thought they had finally scored a victory. Then the shots simply vanished. Not deflected, not absorbed, but completely erased from existence as if they had never been fired at all. What happened to our weapons? Young-Ho demanded. His words were cut short as a blade of pure energy, thin as a laser but somehow solid, sliced through space faster than the eye could follow. The energy blade cut his flagship completely in half, passing through the massive warship as if it were made of soft butter. Young-Ho had just enough time to see the two halves of his ship drifting apart before the reactor core exploded, taking his entire squadron with it. On the bridge of the hegemony command ship Thunderstrike, Admiral Su Bin watched her fleet die piece by piece. Ships that had conquered dozens of worlds were being destroyed by weapons that shouldn't exist. Her finest captains, veterans of 100 battles, were being outmaneuvered by human vessels that moved like they were alive. How? She whispered, her voice barely audible over the sounds of battle. They were primitive yesterday. Their technology was centuries behind ours. The main communication screen flickered to life, showing the face of a human woman with calm, intelligent eyes. She appeared to be in her 40s, with short black hair and wearing a simple military uniform. Behind her, Su Bin could see what looked like a command center filled with holographic displays and human technicians working at control stations. Admiral Su Bin of the Galactic Hegemony. The human woman said in perfect hegemony standard language, "I am Commander Solar of the Earth Defense Force. You have exactly 30 seconds to order the complete and unconditional surrender of your fleet, or we will continue our demonstration of Earth's defensive capabilities." Su Bin's face twisted with rage and disbelief. "This is impossible," she snarled. "Your species was barely capable of interplanetary flight last year. Your technology shouldn't exist for centuries. How did you develop weapons that violate the fundamental laws of physics?" Commander Sora's expression remained calm, but Su Bin caught a glimpse of something sad in her eyes. "We had excellent teachers, Admiral, and we've been preparing for this moment for the past 20 years through the viewport of her flagship." Su Bin watched another wave of her ships crumble under the assault of impossible weapons. Battlecruiser simply faded away like morning mist. A squadron of fighters froze in space as if time itself had stopped round them. A massive dreadnought turned inside out, its interior becoming its exterior in a display that hurt to look at. The humans weren't just winning the battle. They were demonstrating complete mastery over forces that the hegemony's greatest scientists claimed were purely theoretical. They were playing with the fundamental forces of the universe like children playing with toys. 20 seconds, Admiral, Commander Sora said quietly. Subin realized with growing horror that the humans weren't even fighting at full capacity. They were holding back, showing mercy even as they systematically dismantled the most powerful fleet in hegemony history. They could have destroyed every ship instantly. But instead, they were giving the invaders a chance to surrender. The trap hadn't just been perfect. It had been designed by minds that thought decades ahead, planned for every possibility, and prepared for a war while appearing completely defenseless. Earth had been ready for them all along. 3 days had passed since the destruction of the Third Fleet, and Captain Donheim sat alone in the command chair of his crippled vessel, the Wounded Pride. The ship's hull was scarred with strange burn marks that seemed to shift and change when he wasn't looking directly at them. Half his crew was dead, and the other half moved through the corridors like ghosts, their minds still trying to process what they had witnessed. The ship's engines coughed and wheezed as they limped through space at barely quarter speed. Every few minutes, sparks would fly from damaged control panels, and the lights would flicker as power systems struggled to keep functioning. The human weapons had done something to their technology that their engineers couldn't understand or repair. Through the cracked viewport, Dong Hyan could still see Earth in the distance. That beautiful blue marble hanging peacefully in space. It looked so innocent, so harmless. Nothing like the death trap it had revealed itself to be. Round the planet, the wreckage of 200 proud warships drifted in slowly expanding clouds of twisted metal and frozen air of the mighty Third Fleet. Only 5 ships had been allowed to escape. 5 out of 200. The humans could have destroyed them all in minutes, but instead they had chosen mercy. They had disabled most of the fleet, and then carefully selected which vessels would be permitted to carry the message back to Hege. Moe Space, Captain, called out communications officer Insu from his damaged station. The quantum transmitter is barely working, but I think I can get a signal through to Hegemony Command. Donheim nodded slowly. Record message, he said, his voice hoarse from 3 days of giving orders to keep his dying ship operational. Priority Alpha transmission to all species of the Galactic Hegemony. The recording light activated, casting a red glow across his battle-scarred face. This is Captain Donheim of the Hegemony vessel Wounded Pride, sole surviving command officer of the Third Fleet. Earth is not what we believed. The intelligence reports were wrong. Everything we thought we knew was a lie. He paused, struggling to find words that could convey the impossible things he had witnessed. The humans, they played dead while becoming gods. They let us think they were weak, defenseless, primitive. They acted afraid while secretly preparing weapons that shouldn't exist for another 1,000 years. The recording system flickered, struggling to process the data as Donheim continued. I watched ships get crushed by invisible forces. I saw metal age 1,000 years in seconds. I witnessed energy beams that erased matter from existence itself. The humans don't just have advanced technology. They've learned to control the fundamental forces of reality. He gestured toward the viewport where Earth still hung in space, surrounded by debris. 200 ships, the pride of our fleet, gone in less than 4 hours, and the humans were holding back. They could have ended it in minutes. Before he could continue the recording, a new transmission interrupted his broadcast. The familiar image of El de Velther appeared on his damaged screen. The ancient Vorthan's 3 golden eyes blinking slowly in that pattern that meant deep sadness. Captain Don Hyan. The elder said in his deep, resonant voice, "I see you survived. The trap. We tried to warn your leaders, but they would not listen." Don Hyan stared at the alien, pieces of a puzzle suddenly falling into place in his mind. "You know, you were part of this from the beginning." The Vorthan's weathered face showed what might have been regret. "The humans contacted us 37 years ago, shortly after they achieved faster-than-light travel. They came to us not as conquerors, but as students. They wanted to learn about the galaxy, about the species that lived among the stars." Elder Velthar's image shifted as he accessed ancient memory files. They asked us about history, about the rise and fall of civilizations. They studied every war, every conquest, every species that had ever threatened another. They learned from the mistakes of others, but they were primitive. Don Hyan protested weakly. Their technology was centuries behind ours. In some ways, yes, the Vorthan agreed, but in others, they were far ahead. They understood something that most species never learn, that the greatest weapon is not the one that destroys, but the one that prevents destruction through strength. The Elder's 3 eyes focused on something beyond the camera. The humans don't conquer, Captain. They don't expand through force or build empires on the suffering of others. They defend. But when they defend, they do it with the fury of a cornered predator and the cunning of a master strategist who has studied every possible threat. Don Hyan felt a chill run down his spine. They turned their entire world into bait, the ultimate trap. Velvar confirmed. They made Earth look like easy prey while secretly preparing for every possible form of attack. They studied your tactics, your weapons, your psychology. They knew exactly how you would approach, exactly what you would expect to find. The Vorthan's image began to fade as the damaged communication system struggled to maintain the connection. We taught them patience and strategy. We shared our knowledge of galactic politics and history. But everything else, the impossible weapons, the reality-bending technology, the perfect coordination of their defense, they developed that themselves as the transmission ended. Don Hyan sat in stunned silence. The humans had spent decades preparing for this moment, learning from every species in the galaxy while appearing completely harmless. They had studied the hegemony's methods, anticipated their invasion, and prepared the perfect counterattack. "Captain," Insu called out, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth." A new image appeared on the screen. Commander Sora, the human woman who had offered surrender terms during the battle. She sat in what looked like a comfortable office, not a military command center, behind her. Don Hyan could see windows showing Earth's blue skies and green forests. "Captain Don Hyan," she said with a slight smile, "I hope your journey home is progressing safely. We've taken the liberty of providing your ship with some basic repair instructions. Your engineers should be able to restore life support and navigation systems using the data we've transmitted." She leaned forward slightly, her expression becoming more serious. "We want you to carry a message to the galaxy. Earth welcomes peaceful contact and honest trade with all species. We have much to offer: knowledge, resources, friendship. But we will defend ourselves against any and all threats." Sora stood and walked to her window, gazing out at the peaceful planet below. "The choice of how you approach us is entirely yours. Come in peace, and you'll find us generous allies. Come with conquest in mind, and you'll discover that we've prepared for that possibility as well." The transmission ended, leaving Don Hyan alone with his thoughts as his ship continued its slow journey home. Behind him, Earth grew smaller in the distance, but he knew that news of what had happened here would spread throughout the galaxy faster than his crippled vessel could travel. The hegemony had learned a harsh lesson. that would echo through the stars for generations. Never underestimate a species that smiles while quietly sharpening its claws. In the weeks that followed, as word of Earth's defense spread throughout the galaxy, everything changed. The hegemony's enemies began sending secret messages to human space, seeking alliance with the species that had humbled the galaxy's greatest military power. Neutral worlds that had lived in fear of conquest began to breathe easier, knowing that someone had finally proven that the hegemony could be defeated. The age of easy conquest was over. Humanity had announced its presence to the galaxy not through aggression, but through the ultimate demonstration of defensive strength. Earth had become the galaxy's newest power, and they had earned that position through patience, preparation, and the wisdom to appear weak while becoming unbeatable. The end asterisk.